Yo, we made some progress today in a cool way. We did. I've been working for, I want to say 2 hours on this groove, trying to get in a better place. And in those 2 hours, SYNTH tightened up the basses following guidelines that Funtcase gave us for how to make basses gel together, and then also made an entirely new section that's got crazy, that has like genuine breakthrough in the way our basses sound. Now, here's the thing. This drop we've got sounds good. And at that point, though, while it sounds good, you have heard all the bass stuff, right? Everything about these basses is already happened at that point. It's this one, and let's see, these two right here. So like just this. That's all, that's the three basses, and every time you hear those basses, they sound that same way. And this is a thing that like all other drum and bass music I've heard doesn't do. And I always felt like I don't know what I'm doing wrong, and I always felt like I needed to like make a new bass if I wanted to like have different automation. But the mistake I was constantly making was not bouncing my tracks to audio and then manipulating the audio. I was constantly trying to manipulate them in Vital, in here, and I felt like turning these knobs was good for repetitious things, right? LFOs are good for things you want to have happen over and over and over again. But if I wanted to just sound one way in measure 5 and another way in measure 8 and another way in measure 13, I have to do automation here, and this is really tedious to come in and just like slowly put all these little dots in here, especially when, I don't know, I'm just like just to set up a filter, right? You have to just do this, and it feels like it wasn't creative, it wasn't working for me. But today I had an idea of kind of a way I wanted the basses to change in the second drop when I was going to make it more bass centric. On our dig it down bass here, which is going do do dot do do dot do do dot, I wanted kind of a more 4 pattern for the reverb to go like dry dry wet wet dry dry wet wet. And so I was like, well, the way to do that is definitely with Shaperbox. They've got a great tool that allows you to draw in like basically a dry wet knob for reverb, and they've got some internal reverbs that kind of have cool sounds. And so I started out by messing around with that, and then I remembered their Time Shaper, which literally is kind of like a record scratch tool. And so I started messing around with that, and I would just come up with a cool sound, and then I would just bounce it, and then I would go to the next chunk of where this happened, and I would just draw a new shape, bounce it, and I did that same thing for all the dig-a-downs, and then I did that for the first bass up here as well. So in the first half, all of our basses look the same every time they happen. This is what they look like here, right? The first basses, and this is what the dig-a-downs look like. They're basically exactly the same. Look at these though. Look at these in the second half. They look completely different. They look not the same at all in the slightest. I'll play halfway through the normal drop so you can kind of like remember what it normally sounds like, and then you'll get to hear the second part. Okay, right? It's not, I feel like every time I have a breakthrough, I have to like qualify by like, this isn't like my favorite sound, but it's cool, right? And there's a truth to this, that like, I like this last one here. I don't think there's actually, like, I wouldn't be like excited to, it's very out of time. There's nothing musical about it, but I was just so excited to have a tool in my library now, in my arsenal of how to make sounds different, how to make them really feel like the types of basses that I feel like I hear in other people's music. And then now that I know how to do this, I can work on really fine tweaking it and making sure that it actually sounds musical in the way I want it to. So this was really, really cool. The way this time shaper works is not very intuitive. There's a video on Shaperbox's YouTube channel, like going into depth about how to use this, and I would highly recommend you go and get that, or like go watch that if you're planning on trying to use this feature. Basically, this line here represents time stopping. Like as time moves forward on this line, if you keep the bar at the top, nothing happens. If you keep the bar at the bottom, I think nothing would happen as well. And the line going sideways here would also play no sound, because it's basically the whole time waiting for you to give it the chance to start playing. It's like holding it at a certain spot. Basically, if you draw any line less steep than this line here, it will play the sound much slower. And if you draw lines going this way, it'll play the line super fast as it tries to catch back up to where it is on this timeline. If you draw lines in this space, it will, if it has information to play it backwards. That's the super brief, probably extremely confusing description I'm gonna give you guys here. I literally would just go and just like reset this over and over again and just draw in a shape until it sounded interesting. Now with the dig it down, I have the sub actually mixed in. I bounced all the channels combined here, where with the first bass here, I just manipulated the top end, so it's a little bit cleaner there. These sounds, you can hear the sub is kind of just being left alone, where with the dig it down, it's going all over the place. I kind of like that variance there. That's kind of fun, but it does make the dig it down a lot more unruly. So I tried putting an OTT on it, and it really, I don't know, I could not turn the knobs in a way that made it sound good. So I just put a normal compressor on it to try and chop off some of those tops that are really, they get really, really wild in there. So I was really excited to like have some progress there. And now I feel like we could like come out of this and like do a cool down section, right? And then build back up into another drop. We also built a new bass that we used to transition here. That is a sound we have built previously on the channel, but this time I did it with, having the wide top, having the sub on the low. I actually used some resynthesis here and resampled this. I did some FM and then you right click this and click resynthesize preset to wavetable, and kind of got this shape, and then FM'd that again, and that gave us this cool sound here. That was actually the first thing I did before I did all the rest of this stuff. But I was hearing as we kind of came out of this first loop of the drop, like I want a wow wow sound to happen. So, it's not my favorite. It doesn't hit you in the face at all. It's kind of very level, and I'm not quite sure what to do about that, how to make that better. There's probably an OTT on the original sample that I need to turn off. That's probably actually affecting that. Definitely just slapping OTT on everything has been kind of a cheat code I've been working that's been doing more cheating than coding. The other thing I spent a lot of time on today was getting all of these basses to actually sit together. One of the questions I asked Funtcase in the interview masterclass thing we did a few days ago was, how do I get all the basses? I wanted to have different basses sound different. How do I get them all to sound good together? And his point was, you want them to sound different, but you need them to kind of have sonically similar characteristics. They need to look similar in the span, basically. So I spent some time today trying to get them a lot closer to each other. There was certain ones that I was like, these aren't sounding good. And then I would look at the span and be like, oh, I can see, yeah, this one has like a lot more of a high end than the bass that comes right after it or something like that. So now they all kind of, those two are playing and they got nicely together. And while I do have kind of a filter come through there, it starts in kind of a similar place to the first bass and then ends in kind of a similar place to the first bass. So, and the same thing with these other ones. But yeah, that felt really good. It's funny, I've always felt like this whoa really sounds good coming out of this shape. And you can see, like, while it sounds different, the shape that it's making it span is so similar. And that just reinforces what Funtcase said, that they look similar, they will sound good together. So I did a decent bit of like automation of different things while this one was going like this. I also had another one where I brought up a high shelf here to really make sure that there was a lot of high information there for the dig-a-downs. And I think in general that worked well. The other ones I did some more shaping like internally that didn't involve automation. But yeah, so lots of shaping of basses, lots of manipulating of basses, and I'm really excited to be getting this skill set in a place that I think will actually deliver results that I'm excited to show with people, because I was so tired of the fact that every time I made a bass I was like, cool, this is great, but now it's boring after I listened to it 3 times. How can we make things different? This time manipulation thing's cool. I'm excited to see what else I can do this with. Bouncing into audio and then manipulating the audio to get different crazy sounds that are still clearly, though, sonically connected to the previous sounds. So yeah, it was pretty cool. Anyways, that's all I have time for today. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.